Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? Well, the answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. When I started using Anchor to do my podcast, it was so extremely easy that I haven't even bothered to look for another app to use. I love this app. It's the only one I deal with, the only one I even recommend, period. I recommend you get on there ASAP. If you want to start a podcast, this is definitely the place to go. It's easy. You can drive around and record. You can sit in your basement and record. You can do it anywhere. It's fantastic. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast, make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start, anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Adam Rich from the Really Rich Podcast. And I want to ask you, why do you think that why do they fear change so much? What is your thought about it? Are you one of these people? Are you scared of change? Do you just not like it? Do you embrace it? Do you love it? Do you want things to change, or are you the type that just wants to complain when things don't change or do change? I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into this, but really I think it boils down to most people, in fact, don't really like change. Most people, by human nature, we kind of get used to something, and especially if we start liking it, it becomes a thing that we obviously don't want change. We don't want things to change if things are good. But when things are terrible, you notice, like, if you have a job you don't like, or a relationship you don't like, or a friend you don't like, or a situation you don't like, the first thing that a lot of people want to do is complain about it and hope that complaining about it somehow fixes the problem, when in reality complaining about stuff doesn't fix anything. It might make you feel better. I go through this a lot. Sometimes I'll vent and bitch and complain about something that's happening just to get it off my chest, because I feel like if the negative energy is in you, you need to get it out. It's like toxic. It's like a toxin in you, poison. But to me, that's totally different. Getting something off your chest or getting it out there is not the same as like complaining or whining. Like, complaining and whining, I think, is something that you do about the same thing over and over. Like, if you have if you go to a restaurant and the waiter brings out your food and it sucks, and you look at your wife or your husband or whoever you're there, your friend, whoever you're there with, and you're like, man, this meal sucks. Are you going to say, well, you're a complainer, you're a whiner? Like, no, we don't look at people like that. We don't. If something happens and then off the cuff you say something and it seems to be a little, I guess, negative, then people might peg you as, oh, you're complaining. But I don't think that that's complaining. I think that's just acknowledging a certain thing that happened at that time. You know, like, you stub your toe, you walk around your house with no socks or shoes on, and you accidentally run your fucking big toe into the table, the leg of the table, and you're like, oh, fuck, I just stubbed my toe. Is that complaining? Like, no, of course not. Nobody looks at somebody in that situation and thinks like, oh, what a crybaby. What a whiner. Now, if you drag that shit out, like, say you get a paper cut and like 3 hours later you're still complaining, you're still talking about it to people, still saying it hurts, still saying how unfortunate it was that this happened to you, that's complaining. Like, if you're going to keep dwelling on a bad circumstance or a bad situation with zero effort put forth into solving the problem or coming up with a solution, then all you're doing is whining and complaining. But what I find, though, too, is that people will get themselves into a situation way bigger than that. Like, not just a simple, quick little pain, not spraining a finger or, stubbing your toe or anything. But I'm talking real shit. Like, you get into a job where you're there for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and you hate it, but you just keep going and going, but you complain about it all the time. You bitch about your job every day. Well, what are you doing to fix it? Like, what are you doing to change the situation? Are you even trying to change it? Or are you just complaining about it, hoping one day it's just over? Because that's what I don't think a lot of people think about that stuff. Like, there's so many people I know that are so happy to be miserable. They're perfectly comfortable. They're perfectly fine. They're complacent with their situation. And I always ask, I'm like, well, why don't you change it? Like, I'm not saying it's that easy. I know you don't just snap your fingers and all of a sudden your shit's all better. But what I'm saying is why don't you actively try to change your situation? Why don't you do, like, are you doing anything at all about it? Or are you just going to work every day? And then when you put in your 8, 9, 12 hours, whatever it is, and then you go home and you complain to all your family and friends about it. Like, that's not helpful. It's not healthy for you at all. It adds a layer of stress that doesn't go away unless you are actively working on fixing it. Like, if you don't like your job, I'm not saying just go ahead and quit that day. Now, some people can afford to. If you can afford to, or if you got another job lined up, or you got something better or something else or whatever lined up, then quit that day. Fuck, I don't even know why you're listening to this. Quit right now. Turn this off and go quit your job. But if you're not able to do that, I don't recommend quitting. And then, if you're going to be broke, I don't recommend quitting if you have nothing else lined up. I'm not saying just go into your job today or tomorrow or whenever, like soon, and then just go, hey, you know what? Fuck this. I'm out. I quit. And then they're going to be like, well, what are you going to do? And you're like, I don't know. Like, that to me is not a very smart game plan. It's just not. Now, some of us have hit that breaking point where if you hate your job so much that you're like, I don't give a fuck. I got to do this. Then listen, do that, man. But I strongly suggest you at least weigh up your options. I strongly suggest you actually just, when you're mad, happy, whenever, get yourself to a calm, normal, level-headed space. Don't be pissed off. Don't be angry or bitter or sad or anything. Don't let your emotions be a big factor in your decision making. What I'm saying is, actively, sleep on it. Take a day or two or a week to think about your situation. Try to come up with a game plan. Write something down. Take notes. Think about, if you don't like your job or your situation, what can you do to try to fix it? And listen, 99% of the time, no matter what kind of a game plan you come up with, what kind of a strategy you try to implement, the shit's not going to happen overnight. Sometimes the smartest thing to do is to stay where you're at and plot your success, plot your next move. When I've said this in other podcasts, but if you haven't heard this before, this is something very, very, very close to my head, my heart, myself, whatever, because I did the same thing with my job. I for my whole life, I basically was taught to believe that going and getting a good, stable job was the right thing for me to do. And it is the right thing for some people to do. If you're the type that likes having a nice, stable 40-hour paycheck, or every 2 weeks you get paid, if you like having the safe, secure job and you're happy at your job, then stay there. You should stay there. I would never tell you should quit that job. I'm not even saying that having a job is bad. I'm not saying that you should be a business owner or get yourself involved in, I'm not saying you shouldn't be a worker, is basically where I'm going with this. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be a worker. What I'm saying is, if you feel like you're not meant for that, or you don't like it, then you shouldn't be a worker. At that same point, though, what I did is, because I had always been told that, go get yourself a stable job, get a 401k, get a retirement plan, get all this. I started doing all those things straight out of high school. As a matter of fact, even while I was in high school, that was basically my plan. My mom and dad both worked, all the time. They never owned businesses. They never ran companies. They were workers. They worked and they made good money, but they come from a poor, like both their families were very poor growing up. They come from not having a whole lot. So then when they got a good job that actually paid very well, they never wanted to let that go. And I can't blame them for that. That's the smartest thing you could possibly do, especially back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, back then before the internet came around, before you could run a business from your cell phone, basically. That was the smart thing to do. But if you wanted to make any other kind of money, you had to sacrifice your time in some way, shape, or form. And I think that actually happens with every one of us, really. If you want to make extra money on the side from just your job, you have to devote your time towards your quote-unquote side hustle, or your quote-unquote future, your startup, or your charity, or your hobby, or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. You have to put forth time and effort into it. It doesn't happen on its own. Nobody is just going to show up, no matter how much you complain or how much you love life. Nobody is going to show up to your doorstep and say, hey, I would like to make you an offer for zero reason to come do whatever it is that you want and live your dream. Like, that doesn't happen. So if you have something in mind that you want to do, something you're super passionate about, something you really love a lot, then I highly recommend you start this minute. You start today. You start this hour, whenever the fuck you can possibly get after it. I recommend you start finding a way to work at the job that you want, the future that you want. Listen, I didn't start on mine until I was 34. I really didn't. I thought about it when I was 34. Up until that point, I always believed that I should just have a safe job, work there until I'm able to retire, and then just try to live off whatever I made until I die. And you know how depressing that shit sounds, actually, like thinking back on it now? But in the 70s and 80s and 90s, that was the option. I mean, that was the safest option you could have to guarantee that you can save money and do. And plus, I always grew up very, like, my parents had a decent amount of money, but they weren't like millionaires. We weren't like loaded. They just had more than enough money to have decent things, have a nice home, have nice vehicles that ran good. We were able to take a couple vacations here and there, and they had enough money to enjoy life. But they weren't like loaded. We weren't driving we didn't have Ferraris and Lamborghinis and mansions and shit like that. That isn't how I grew up. At the same time, my dad was very, very, very convincing at making me not worship money the way 99.99999% of all people do. Not all people, but you get what I'm saying. I know that I'm extremely rare when it comes to the way I feel about money. I don't expect anyone to understand or be on the same page as me. I'm not saying that you should think like me. I'm not even saying that I'm right. All I'm saying is that at a very early age, my mom and dad made me very aware of the awful, evil, terrible shit that people will do for money. At the way people will sell out their own family members and their own friends, and they will rob from people and steal and kill and cheat and all these things for money. People expose themselves by, listen, if you're not living the best savory life, somebody can bribe you and get money from you for that. Like, you can be extorted, basically. And I know I'm going with extreme cases here. I know this doesn't happen every second of every day to every person. What I am saying is if you can afford to live very humbly and not let yourself be exposed by money, not let money dictate how you live your life, not let money run your decision making, dude, shit gets really good for you very quickly. When you can stop trying to live for other people, live for their approval, like buy a certain car because, like, listen, I go to work. I drive GM vehicles usually because my dad and my mom and dad met at GM. My dad retired from GM while my mom retired from UPS. And but anyway, I've always driven GM vehicles. My dad worked there, my mom worked there. It was common, obviously. Well, I have so many friends that are Ford guys that just shit all over GM vehicles. Now, I never once have thought to myself, man, maybe I should get a Ford just so I stop getting this harassment. Maybe I should go get a Ford because my friends think Fords are better. Or maybe I should go get a Ford because of X, Y, or Z. I don't give a fuck what people think. I care what you think as far as like, I hope you're happy in life. I hope everything's good for you. I hope that I don't want you to look at me as a piece of shit or an asshole or a selfish person or somebody who's trying to steer you wrong or anything. But if you do look at me like that, okay, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I don't want you to think that way. I don't want to live like that. And I damn sure don't want my legacy to be that I was a piece of shit. I want to genuinely help people. I want to do good for people. But if I do all those things and you still think that I'm a piece of shit, you still hate me, you still think I'm a joke, you still want to laugh at me or talk shit or hate on me or write dumb shit on social media, I don't care. That's awesome for you. Whatever makes you happy. But I don't need approval, and I don't need piles or trucks of money for me to feel happy. I know that it just buys material shit. When you can to save money and spend money on proper things that can benefit you in the long run, not whatever the nicest new shoes are or new clothes are, new coat, new hat, new jewelry, new cars, new houses or fancy houses, whatever, when you don't live for all the material garbage that is in this world, life becomes extremely enjoyable, and you can save and save and save to eventually be able to afford to buy something very beneficial that is great, that you're grateful for, that is helpful for you. Like I always say, I would much rather go on like a vacation than buy some cool new object, because the vacation will lead to the experiences. I can take pictures. I can take my family there. I can enjoy the experience together. It builds memories. It builds bonds. It teaches you about the culture of wherever you're going. It teaches you how people are around there, or about the environment, or whatever the fuck it is that you're into. But when you buy a new pair of Jordans, somebody else in the street is going to be like, man, those look sweet. I don't give a fuck about any of that. I don't care, like, if somebody else likes the items that I've purchased. I don't buy items for other people to like them. I buy them for me to like them. And I only spend money, like, on things that I need, or things that, if I got extra money, there's a way I've always done something. Whenever I've come into any form of money, whether it's a $10 gift card or a fucking, maybe not a gift card, but like if somebody gives me like $20 for birthday or something, or if I get tax returns, or if I get a $50 lottery ticket or anything, if I get some form of money that I didn't actually like work my 40-hour paycheck for, or that I didn't sell something for, or whatever, when I make some kind of bonus money, I guess, I always have this philosophy where I save half and then I do whatever the fuck I want with the other half. Because you can't say it's irresponsible to blow half of it when you're saving half of it. And when you save half of it, that money, you don't touch that money, that eventually becomes money that adds up. If every time I got $100, I save 50 of it, that's a lot of fucking money after a while. But it's not when every time you get $100, you've already planned on how to spend 101 of it. It's just not smart. It's not good business for you or your life. And sorry, to be honest with you, that I basically went off on so many different tangents. That is the whole point of all of this was really to discuss the idea of change and the idea of how to get over it, or what is how many people are okay with change, and how many people. And the reason why I started branching off on those other things is it's like, I think a lot of reasons why people fear change is because it's unexpected. You don't know what's coming, and it's very nerve-wracking. It's very scary. And if you don't handle these situations properly, if you don't handle other people's opinions and judgment, it's very easy to allow a situation where your shit has changed, whether it's your job, relationship, the way you live your life. Maybe you had a drug habit and you're trying to kick it. Maybe it can lead to so many different avenues. But the reality is, things are always changing. And I don't want people to think that, like, if you go into it fearing change and not wanting change, and thinking that it's going to, like, there's somehow a way to avoid it or anything, you're going to put yourself behind, and you're going to make yourself miserable. And a lot of people know that, they know that something's coming. Like, here's the thing. If you want to start a new business, or you want to go get a new job, or you want to start going back to school, but you're in your 40s, it's very easy to let outside judgment, outside opinions make you fear making that change. And that's why I think a lot of it boils down to not knowing how to handle the people, like the opinions and the judgment that's coming your way. And if something changes and you're not very capable at handling it properly, you can be very vulnerable, you can have a weakness towards it. And maybe if you handle it improperly and then say it becomes, the new situation becomes a failure, a lot of people are scared of what other people are going to think. A lot of people are nervous about, well, if I make this big change in my life, what is everyone else going to say? What are my friends going to say? What is the family going to think? Well, they're going to look at me differently. And, when you're young and you're building basically a reputation, whether you do it on purpose or not, when you're young, your actions, in life, your actions dictate how people will look at you. Not what you think, not what you say. It's really the actions that you take. What you do in your life will ultimately dictate the way people look at you and what they think of you. What I'm trying to say is, don't worry about what they think of you or what they say of you, because if you live your life based on what somebody might say, you're going to scare yourself into making a big change. And a lot of times, let's be honest, we're fearful of change, not just for those reasons, but for the fact that even if we fail and nobody sees it, change is very scary when you have no idea what the outcome is going to be. Like if you wanted to, I don't know, say you go on LinkedIn, you find a new job or somebody's offering you a new job, but it's in a different country. You know how many people would not take the job just because it's in a different country? Because it's a scary thing, man. You're not only is your whole life changing, but your environment, the people around you, the lack of friends and family or people to go to, the people to turn to, the lack of help that you're going to be able to receive if you move by yourself to a new country to start a job. You might have one or two or three people that are on board, like bringing you in and trying to help you. But at the end of the day, if you're moving for another job, you're only going to be so helped because those people aren't going to be, just because you go work there doesn't mean they're going to be your best friend and like take you under their wing and hang out with you every night and show you around and all that. Sometimes the people are just your coworkers. Sometimes they want you to come there and then it's on you to figure everything out. Maybe you're with somebody for a very long time and you're scared to leave them because you don't know what your life is going to be like without that. Or how your life is going to change, and it could be worse. You don't know. But the thing is this: if you're in a situation where you're just miserable every day, you need to get out of that any way possible. Because the reality is, say you are scared to make the change because you don't know how it's going to affect your life. Well, if you're already miserable, then what does it matter if you change your life? I mean, are you going to get more miserable? That's the thing I think a lot of people do with jobs is they're scared to leave a job that they know to go start something new because they don't know how that something new is going to pan out. All they know is that the job that they have, whether they love it or hate it, they're familiar with it. They're used to it. They know how to work around that. They you know what I'm saying? It's like if you have, you live in a certain place, and you might not necessarily like the neighborhood, the house, the area you live in, the city you live in, the state you live in. You might not like any of those things, but you know what your life is like in those things, with those things. So it's easier and it's less scary to deal with something that might not be that great than to go and try to pursue something better. And the thing is this, you know how many people have become huge and successful because they couldn't take it anymore. They couldn't take doing something that they hated, living a life that they didn't like. They wanted to go do what they wanted to do. And a lot of them have put themselves in situations to where they're very broke. Some of them living out of their car. Some of them living off of a friend's couch for months or years. Just doing everything they can to scrape by until they finally hit it big. And that has happened to so many people. But the difference with those people and the other people that fear the change is that they're willing to sacrifice their comfort to pursue their dream, to pursue their happiness. And that's really what it comes down to. The drive that they have to live the dream or the life that they want is so much greater than the fear that they have for the change that's coming. And listen, like I said, I'm not trying to persuade people to change their situation just to change it or anything like that. I'm not saying, you really need to do a deep dive on yourself and think about what it is that you like, what it is that you really cannot tolerate. Like, there's a lot of things in our lives that we just don't like, but it's reality and you just have to deal with it. But if you think that you can make a change and it will make your life better, then you should do that. But don't just do it, don't just attempt it on a whim and then get mad if it doesn't happen, because you need to, it's hard. It's very difficult to try to be safe about making a major change. It is. But the only example that I really know to speak from of my own situation, I don't want to just give you some fabricated nonsense. I'd rather tell you my own experience. Working at the job that I don't, that I just, I've always kind of known it wasn't for me, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was very confused with myself as far as, I've always had confidence to think that I could do something bigger or to do something better or greater in the world, but I had zero idea how to do it. And I didn't, and ultimately, you're always battling self-doubt and confidence. You're always battling, am I good enough or am I not good enough? I've always had my parents just build me up with self-esteem and confidence. But when it came to my job or my work, it always, because of the parenting that I had, which I'm not blaming them, this is the best advice they could have given me, given the situation and the times and the life that they lived. All they knew was to go get a safe job and work for so many years until you can retire and then live off your pension or your 401k or your retirement plan or whatever. That's all they knew. There wasn't a lot of room. When you come from a very poor family and nobody in your family is a business owner, an entrepreneur, it's not really ingrained in you to feel like maybe I should try to be the first. It's more like when you're being raised, especially before the age of the internet, you only basically got information based on what was around you. You didn't get global information. You didn't get worldwide knowledge. You got whatever the best knowledge is that you could get around you. So if you lived in a small town with only a few, 100 people or something, you basically only learned about 100 lives, 100 stories, 100 different ways of operating and going through life. Now you have the internet. Even if you do live in a small town, you got the internet that can tell you about how everybody lives around the world. With social media, you get to see how they live. You get to see the shit that they post. You get to see the restaurants they go to and all the food they eat. You learn so much more now. And when you do have confidence and self-esteem, and you can handle other people's judgment, when you can handle failure like a fucking champion and not worry about, oh, I failed and other people are saying I suck now. Oh, good. Let them. Because when you take enough losses and you learn enough of what not to do, you start only doing what's right. And then you start succeeding. And then when you start succeeding, all those assholes that laughed at you and said that you sucked back when you were failing, now when you're winning, they're the first people in line to be like, oh yeah, remember me? Remember when we used to hang out? Remember when we used to talk? Remember when we had high school together and all that shit? It's fake. It's nonsense. They love you when you're successful. They think you're a joke when you're a failure. And I say, fuck both opinions. Neither one of them are right. You decide what's right in your own life. That's bottom line. But realistically, man, the biggest thing that you can take away from all of this is that regardless when and where and how things change, they're always going to. And if you're not willing to embrace it, it's going to happen without you. You're going to be behind. You're going to be nervous, scared, stressed out. It can hit you in 100 different types of ways. But you need to, I guess the best thing is to be versatile, be willing to adapt, be able to adapt. I take a lot of pride in being able to adapt to a situation, a surrounding, any time, any different environment I've been put in. I'm not saying I'm the greatest, I succeed, I'm awesome, I'll crush it. I'm not trying to sit there and say that. What I am saying is that I take a lot of pride in being able to, you can put me in a group of different types of people and I can still be able to, language-wise, I don't know if I'll be able to communicate, but I remember being, I'll give you an example, because I don't know how to fucking word this properly, apparently. But when I was in high school, I wasn't the most popular, and I wasn't like a loser. I wasn't like overlooked. I wasn't underlooked. I wasn't anything special. But what I did is there was groups and cliques everywhere. There was groups of people that did this. There was like the jocks, the skaters, I don't know. There was just all kinds of different group, the nerds, you know, the cheerleaders. There was all these different groups and cliques and all that. And if you weren't with certain people, you know, you were either made fun of or you were part of an outcast or whatever. I never had a group that I put myself into. I always just liked being nice and friendly and trying to be funny with everybody, because I didn't care for the group shit. I don't care for the group. Like, if you hang out with the jocks, you got to think a certain way about the nerds. If you hang out with the skaters, you got to feel a certain way about the teachers and the principals, and I won't conform and all, you know. And like, if you hang out with the goth people, you ain't hanging out with the rap people and all this shit. And it's like, it's just stupid to me. It doesn't make any sense, because ultimately we all grow up, we all go on past high school, and then if you only know how to hang out with certain types of people and you only know how to be around certain types of people, you're going to be in trouble when you get out into the real world and see that everyone around you comes from a totally different walk of life. They have different perspectives, different attitudes, the way they think, the way they operate, their views, the things that they think is fun or cool or great, and compared to the way you think. It's going to be different. And I don't recommend getting yourself only attached to a certain type of person, a certain type of like group or whatever, because it's a weakness, man. It puts you back a couple of notches. Then you got to play catch up once you get out into the real world and see that there's a guy, there's a jock and a nerd hanging out together, working on the same project together at work. If you only know how to do, like, if you hung out with the jocks and you shit all over the nerds, now you're going to be in a weird situation. And if you only hung out with the nerds and you shit on the jocks, now you're going to be in a weird situation in a different way. So you need to be versatile. You need to be able to be put in front of different types of people, different types of environments, different types of jobs, different settings, all that, and be able to adapt. I think that that's extremely important to embracing any fucking change, because look at it, we all have different jobs. Like, it's very rare that one person has one job their entire life and that's all they have. Like, we all started somewhere. Like, I worked doing my very first like paying job other than chores from my parents was working with my uncle doing landscaping. And I had terrible allergies. It wasn't a fun time for me. Then the next job I had to go do, I was working at Wendy's for a couple years, flipping fucking burgers and shit. Totally different setting than being outdoors doing yard work. Then I went to go work for my uncle at a tanning salon, working for like 4 or 5 years with him behind at the cash register, just dealing with people. Like, I went from landscaping, where you literally deal with nobody but the guy you're working with or the couple guys you're working with, to then working in a group setting, but it was behind a counter, away from customers, flipping burgers, making stuff, preparing food and all that. Then the next job I went to was 100% dealing with customers. And so those 3 jobs alone, and I've had several other jobs after that, but those 3 types of jobs alone are so very different in the day-to-day operation and what you need to know, what you need to do, how you need to be able to adapt. I mean, I worked for a few days with this one guy refinishing basements. The only reason I quit that job after 3 days is because the guy was the most royal cockbag I've ever worked for in my entire life. He was a complete dickhead about everything. So He had like 30 years experience and wanted a guy with 0 experience to do everything perfectly, the way he does it, as fast as he does it, when he does it, how he does it. It's like, go fuck yourself. But anyway, that is neither here nor there. Obviously, I didn't last very long with that type of leadership. But then I worked at Home Depot, where, you know, you got to learn products. You have to learn different types in a department that, look, I had a little bit of electrical background. I worked in the electrical department, but there was things in that department I never seen or heard of. And, you know, then you got to deal with customers. And not only do you got to deal with customers, regardless what kind of an attitude or a character, you know, what kind of character they are, you then have to know the shit that you're talking about to be able to help them. If they're looking for something and they're not exactly sure what they're looking for, you have to know. So I've just worked in a lot of different types of jobs, and now in a factory for the last 14, 15 years. I work with people, but it's all production. It's all like, and it's not an assembly line, but it's basically that type. It's machine operating and things like that, and working with different materials and different, structures and all these things, and building and setting up dies and all this. And the reality is, every fucking job I've had is not at all like the last one. And now I'm podcasting. I'm still working at the factory place, but I'm also building my own podcast, my own brand, if you will. I'm not like Nike and all that shit, but it's basically every episode I put out is a representation of who I am. It's my brand. It's exactly what I am, who I care about, who I am, all that shit. So it's a totally different environment every time. But I really think it's important to learn different jobs, different aspects, different ways of life, different people, all that. Be versatile, adapt. That way when change happens, because it's inevitable. Like I said, I never wanted to learn the internet. I never wanted to learn computers. I never wanted to learn social media. But then it got to the point where I was like, fuck, this is the way everything is in life, and it's passing me by. I'm not learning it because I didn't like it. Well, I don't have a choice after a while. Sometimes you have to learn shit you don't like because you have to deal with it. It is what it is. So I just highly recommend, stop fearing change, stop worrying about change, stop being scared of it or trying to run from it, and embrace it. Life is always going to change. Life is always going to change, man. You're only a teenager for so long. You're only a little kid for so long. You're only in your 20s for so long. You're only in your 30s or 40s for so long. You're only a 70 or 80-year-old for so long. You're only single for so long. You're only, without children for so long. And obviously everyone is different. We all deal with different things. But my point is, life is constantly moving. It's constantly changing. When I was a kid, there was no cell phones. There was no computers. There was no internet. There was computers, but it was totally different. Totally different story. It was more just for either keeping shit on file or playing computer games, basically, when I was a kid. It wasn't a home, luxury. It wasn't like a place where you can go and put all your CDs and find your Facebook and find every answer to every question through the internet. It wasn't like that when I was fucking 5-10 years old. And now it is. I went from nobody on the fucking planet having a cell phone to literally nobody leaves their house without one. I went from being where you couldn't get a hold of somebody until they felt like calling you back, which could have been days, if they ever did call you back, to now, if somebody doesn't text you back in 5 minutes, you're pissed off. It's just crazy. Times are always changing. So we need to stop having this fear of the change and start embracing it, start welcoming it, start saying, okay, this is what's new. Let's fucking be great at it. Let's kill it. Every time the game changes, learn the rules and then beat everyone at it. That's the goal. That's the idea you should have towards change. The game has now changed. What are the new rules? Let's learn every bit of it, and let's be the master of this game. That's how you will get ahead amongst everyone else, because most people don't care to learn it. Most people don't care. I had the internet had been around for 20 fucking years before my grandma finally learned how to use it. It just got to the point where you couldn't deal without it. Everything was paid with cash or a written paycheck back then, or a written check back in the day. And now everything is done with a fucking card. Everything is done over a computer. Everything's different. I went from, how many Disney movies I've never seen and never gave a fuck about it. But now I have an 11-month-old daughter. And I'm like, fuck, I can't wait to get Disney Plus and put that shit on my system. Start watching all the old shows and cartoons and all the movies I'd never watched. I get to now go back and show her all these things. Like, it's exciting. But for 30 years of my life, I didn't give a fuck about none of it. You know what I mean? And so this is the point, is you don't know what's coming. You have no idea. VR and AR are going to come about. It's going to happen in my lifetime. It's definitely going to happen in your lifetime. So are you going to be scared of it and talk about it and say, I can't, look at what we're doing to our children. Our children are just living on the computers. Our children are living in the VR. This is the world that's happening. You can either be scared of it and try to stop it and fail miserably, Or you can learn to embrace it, learn the rules of the new game, get good at it, so that way nobody can outsmart you at it. That's the best. That's what needs to be done. And I mean, look, you can try to avoid it all you want. You can say, hey, you're wrong. It's not true. You don't have to. Okay. You don't have to listen either. But take it from somebody who failed miserably and should have learned, and I waited until I was in my 30s to learn. It's a problem. Trust me on that. You don't want to learn? Don't. Nobody can make you. I'm trying to help you get ahead of the game. I'm trying to help you get ahead of the issues that I dealt with. Listen, if you're 15 years old or 20 or 25, if you're any at all younger than me or old, it doesn't matter how old you are, but if you're young especially, don't have the mindset of, oh, I'll never need this. I remember in school thinking, calculus, I'll never need this. Trigonometry, I'll never need this. Sewing or cooking class, I'll never need this. Guess what? You might not. However, if the time comes where you have to know it, and you waited your whole fucking life to learn it, and now you got to learn it, you know how far behind you are compared to everyone else now? And look, there's only so much time we have in the day. I'm not saying learn everything that does. I'm not saying if you hate basket weaving, go learn how to do that tomorrow. Go learn how to stitch dowels. Just in case one day, listen, obviously, there's certain things you just don't have the time for. You can only learn so much. You only got so much time in a day. I get it. But if something feels like it has the potential to be a big part of your life one day, maybe you're trying to avoid, like the internet, like I did. Like learning about computers like I did when I was young. I didn't care. All my friends were learning about computers, learning what RAM was, learning what computer memory was. They were learning what a hard drive is. And I'm just like, I don't care. I don't like those things. It's not an interest to me. I don't give a shit. My dad was super great at building cars and build engines and working on them and fixing them and all that shit. And I didn't care. And it kind of broke his heart that I didn't care because he was so into it. And he just wanted me to be, I just never I just didn't care as much. I own cars. I want them to run good, but it's never been my thing. And some people are like, oh, you're not a man if you don't know engines. Oh, all right, tough guy. You clearly are a man. Then I'm not. But the thing is, we live in a time where you don't have to know everything about cars. In the 70s, if your shit broke down, you didn't have cell phones to call anyone. You didn't have AAA. You didn't have, a fucking brake shop on every corner. We're living in different times. There are certain things that aren't as relevant anymore as they used to be. Like farming, like growing your own food. It's cool if you do. It's cool if you do that. It's a good thing. I think it's very beneficial for you if you learn how to do that and you do that in your own house and all that, at your own house and all that. But by no means do I think it's a necessity. I rarely, me and my wife, we have a little garden. And like this year we grew some tomatoes and some jalapenos and shit. But by no means am I growing my entire meals. I don't think it's necessary to have to know how to do that. What's the worst that would have happened if I didn't grow my own tomatoes and fucking jalapenos? I would have just gone to Kroger and bought them. I would have just gone to Meijer. Or fucking Randazzo's, the food market, the veggie and fruit market and all that. Like, there's so many areas. If your car doesn't run and it's, 20 below, are you going to go outside and fix it? Probably not. You would probably rather pay somebody else to do it. Now, if you had no choice, then I think it'd be a very wise move for you to learn how to fix your own car if you don't have the option of not doing it. You know what I mean? So you have to weigh this up. It's all within your own head, within your own willpower. But all I'm saying, people, is that don't fear the change. Embrace it. It's inevitable. You cannot stop it. The life is always going to move whether you're here or not, whether you like it or not, whether you're ready for it or not. It's going to happen. So don't worry about it. Don't be scared of it. Just try to get yourself into a position where no matter what happens in your life, you're fully ready to embrace it and fucking nail it. It's important, man. I think adaptability and versatility is two of the most important things you can have going for you in your life. Knowing how to adapt into any environment, to any situation, It's crucial. And by no means, like I said, that doesn't mean that I'm perfect at it and that I hit it out of the park every time. It's just I feel like I'm very competent in almost any situation. Almost. Like, I don't think I would do very well in prison. I'm just being honest. I don't think I would do very well in prison. I would probably be passed around like a bag of Doritos. And I would probably... I don't know, man. I might be wearing lipstick before the end of the first day. I don't know. I've never done it. I've never been there. I have no fucking clue. But all I'm saying is there's certain situations that you can try to get yourself adaptable at or very good at. You should do those things. Now, if you don't like it, just don't complain when life passes you by and now you have no choice but to adapt. When they eliminate the use of paper money and you've never learned how to use a computer or a fucking, electronic banking, you're fucked. Now you got to learn all that shit. Now you're super behind. If you don't want to learn social media and you're against it and you think, fuck social media, I don't need none of this. And then all of a sudden you want to start your own business. Good luck advertising without it. Good luck displaying your products and your brand and trying to get people to want your product if you don't use social media, if you don't connect with the customers. Everything is done electronically and over the internet now. Get good at it. That's the important thing. So, I don't know, guys. I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I've said pretty much all I can say about it. Just try to get good at as many things as you can. Don't be scared of change. Don't worry. Don't stress yourself out. That's never worth it. Just when change happens, try to accept it as quickly as possible. Don't whine and complain that it changed and you're not ready for it and all that, because nobody's going to give a fuck. We're all going through it together. Just get good at it and get yourself as prepared as physically possible. And when change happens, just know that it is what it is. This is life now. This is now life going forward. I now have a child. That's my life going forward. Every decision I make has to be somehow beneficial for my wife and my child, not just myself. I have to think about other people first before I just put my own self in line. Like I said, the job that I'm working at, if I didn't have my wife or child, I would have already quit the job and moved and just did my own thing. Because if I failed, the only one that's going to hurt out of there is me, and I can handle it. I don't like it. I don't want it, but I'd like to think I'm tough enough to handle dealing with my own losses for myself. But when my losses affect my wife and my daughter, it's a different fucking ballgame. I can't afford to lose for them. I don't want to make them lose just for my own, sake. Just because of my own selfishness. I'm not doing that. So instead, I keep saving my money. I keep going to work every day, and then I do work on my podcast when I can, as much as I can. And I try to connect with people and use social media and talk to everyone and answer questions and be involved. I try to be as involved as I can, because ultimately the goal is to do this to help people forever. It's to get myself away from the factory environment and get myself in a position where I can be 100% all in on helping people, guiding people, giving them advice that I have gone through that I know works for myself. And at the same time, I don't want to make things unrealistic. I'm not saying everybody's situation is like mine. I know that it's not. I'm just trying to come at it from as many angles as I can to teach people that come from a different perspective, different walk of life, a different mindset. I want to be able to help everyone be able to navigate towards what makes them happy, what makes them not scared, what makes them go through life and appreciate every day and love every day, not look at every day as, oh, fuck, it's another day of this again. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants that. So I'm trying to do everything in my power to help people do that. And if people notice, anyone who listens to this, anyone who has followed me on social media, you know that I have never once asked anybody for a fucking penny. I've never done that. I've always tried to give away as much information and help and advice and everything for free, for 100% free. Now, I am also trying to write books and try to put them out, because ultimately, let's be honest, I'll never be able to do this for 20, 30, 40, 50 years for free. I got to make money somehow. But I never ask it for people. That's not why I'm doing it. I'm trying to figure out a way to make money doing it. But I never want to ask people for money because I'm not some huckster that's just trying to take your money and offer you some fucking, if you give me 3 easy payments of $30, you can have my 40-page fucking masterclass on how to live happy. Like, I'm not doing that shit. I think that that's fucking weak. I hate when people are doing that because all they're trying to do is make you pay them to give advice. I've done listen, I don't know how many episodes I even have now. I know I got well over 100. And they're all fucking free. Now, the only form of payment, like I have sponsors and shit or whatever, and that can give me a little bit. But trust me when I say I'm still working at a factory for a reason. It is not my dream job. That's the nicest way I can put it in case anyone's listening to this that I work with. The nicest way I can put it is it's not my dream job and it's not what I plan on doing for the rest of my life. But I'm still there, ain't I? It's because I have to be. It's because they pay me too good not to leave there. I don't get paid enough doing the podcast and my social medias and writing my book and everything. I'm not getting paid for any of that, like enough to quit a job. I wish I was. Trust me, guys, I'm very transparent about this. You guys will be the first to know when I don't have that job anymore and this shit is my full-time, all-day, everyday business. I can't fucking wait. But I ain't there yet, and I'm admitting it. And for anyone that thinks that that's, shit or a joke or, I'm a failure or whatever, hey, enjoy thinking however you want. Whatever gets you through the day and makes you happy. But you got to start somewhere. Just remember this, people. For anyone that's scared to make the change like how I did, if you don't have the money to do it, stay at your job and work at it in your spare time. If you do have the money, then do what you got to do what you want to do, what makes you happy. Go all in, do everything you can. But when you're not succeeding day one or week one or month one or year one, and people are laughing at you and talking shit about how you made a bad decision, you made the wrong choice, you fucked up, you should have stayed here, you should have did this, ignore every single ounce of that. Tunnel vision your shit forward. Just keep going forward. Keep plugging away. Keep doing what you like and what you love. And when other people are laughing, that's fucking background noise. Look at that as like a standing ovation. You don't hear when you're in a crowd of people clapping, you don't hear one guy clapping or one girl clapping. It's all white noise. Treat every fucking hater-ass comment as if it's an applaud for you. Keep fucking going. Look at that shit, that white noise, as people are cheering you on. It doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't affect how good you are. It doesn't affect how successful you are. It doesn't affect how quickly you make shit happen. Because the people closest to you, the people nearest to you, the people that see you the most are going to be the first ones to talk shit when it doesn't work out day one. They're going to be like, oh, how much longer? Oh, you think they're going to... Nobody blows up day one. We all start from zero. We all start with 0 subscribers, 0 followers, 0 LinkedIn connections, 0 podcast episodes, 0 everything, man. You start at 0. Everybody does. So everyone that is successful, remember that all of them had a day one. All of them had a point in time where nobody knew who the fuck they were. Nobody gave a shit who they were. And now look at where they're at now. You think that everyone successful never dealt with negative comments? Never dealt with people saying they suck? There's people right now that are like A-list. There's like Jennifer Aniston. Jennifer Aniston is one of the most sought-after actresses, one of the most popular women on the face of the planet. And there are tons of people out there that are like, oh, her movies suck. Yeah. That's what you get to hear. From one of the most sought-after people in the face of the fucking earth. She's got to deal with people going, yeah, her movies suck. She's not even that good of an actress. Okay. And where are those people at? Those people are sitting on their couches watching her. You ever notice that the people that are booing you the loudest are the ones sitting in the stands? They ain't the one on the field. The people on the field are playing. The people in the stands are the ones booing. So let them sit on the sidelines. Let them sit in the stands and boo you while you're on the field making shit happen. Look, Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, has won a lot of games and a lot of Super Bowls. He's also lost a couple of them too. Don't let one or two failures, don't let some of your failures dictate your legacy, your attitude, your perspective, your mindset, your happiness, dude, overall. Guy or girl, man or woman, whatever the fuck it is that you want to do in your life, don't ever let somebody else's opinion affect whether or not you're willing to make that change. It's your life. Live it how you can. Live it as good as you can. Be as good as you can. But ignore the fucking nonsense from other people. Doesn't matter. But listen, guys, it's all. I don't want to keep. I know I've probably repeated myself 1,000 times as it is. So I'm going to cut it at 1,000. And I'm going to leave you guys at that. I love you so much. Thank you so much for listening, guys. I can't thank you enough. Like, the shit is moving quicker and quicker. I'm getting more and more people listening and all that, and it feels fucking phenomenal. I just hope that what I'm putting out for you is helpful towards you in your life. This is not about you just listening to me ramble on shit. It's about me genuinely, actively helping you in your life do things or see things better. Because nobody deserves to go through life being miserable, depressed, thinking they suck, having low self-esteem, all because of the opinions of other fucking people. It doesn't matter if everyone in the face of the earth thinks you're terrible. If you are doing what you like and makes you happy and you're accomplishing your goals, who gives a fuck what anyone has to say or think about it? You know, just be good to people, be kind. When people are shitting on you, just understand that they obviously have some bad shit going on in their life to make them so hateful and negative and bitter. Don't fight back. Don't argue back at them and attack them back and go on their page and blast them and do shitty comments, and just have empathy. Understand that you clearly in life have it better than them if they're shitting on you. Nobody shits on the people that are doing worse. Nobody with 1,000 followers goes to the person with 20 followers and just starts lighting up their page about, you suck, fuck you, you're an asshole. Nobody wastes time on that. If you ever notice, most of the trolls, most of the haters are doing worse than the people that they're trolling and hating on. It's just the truth. And if you're the type that has 1,000 followers and you're going after somebody with 20 followers, what the fuck's wrong with you? That's small game, dude. That's small fish. What does it matter? Let the people that think you suck be the ones that cheer you on the loudest later on when you make it. But you got to shut it out, because there's so many times that people ignore or don't ignore it. There's so many times that people listen to it and then they alter their game plan because they're like, man, everyone's saying I suck. I should just give up. I should stop. Don't let somebody else's words affect how you progress in your life. But that's it, guys. I'm sorry. That's the last one, I promise. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to get a hold of me, you can go through the Anchor app and leave me voice messages. I will comment. I will call you back. I will do anything I can to get a hold of you, and just, whether you love me, hate me, want to, agree with me or disagree with me, I don't care. I love it. Just please get a hold of me. I love having the conversations. I love having the debates. Please, let's do more of this. Let's talk more. I promise. Even if you hate my guts, I promise if you sit down and talk to me, you'll understand where I come from, and you'll know that I'm not guiding you in a bad place. I'm not giving you bullshit. I'm not trying to steer you in the wrong direction. I'm a genuinely decent human being. I try to be, at least. Do I have flaws? Absolutely. Of course I do. But I genuinely want good for all people. I was blessed unbelievably to have the parents that I have teach me the way that they did. Most people don't get taught the things that I got taught at an early age that has helped me have the confidence and self-esteem that I have, even when other people didn't give me reason to believe it. My parents did. So I've learned I'm very grateful for the way that they raised me. Not that I've done anything special, but I do believe that my parents were special. I really do. And I can't be thankful enough for how they've raised me, the things that they've taught me. And I know that a lot of people don't get that. Some people come from a really fucked up place, a really bad home, a really bad relationship with their parents, their siblings, their family, and they don't get the love and confidence building and self-esteem building that my parents gave me. So I can't be thankful enough to them, but I also feel like it's my responsibility to then try to give that to other people. It's a gift. It was a gift that was given to me that I didn't deserve, and it's my responsibility to give that gift to somebody else. So I love you guys, and I thank you so much. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. If you want to get a hold of me on Instagram, it's Really Rich Podcast. If you want to get a hold of me on Twitter, it's Really Rich Adam. If Snapchat or YouTube, my YouTube channel, they're both Really Rich, just Really Rich, exactly how it's spelled, exactly how it sounds. And LinkedIn, please find me on LinkedIn. I'm trying to connect with everyone, including you, and I love you guys, and I thank you enough. The name is Adam Rich on LinkedIn, and I will talk to you guys as soon as I possibly can. All right. I love you guys. Peace. I'm out of here.